Alright, so kita sambung lagi. Tadi kita bincang pasal TVET, then terus pergi buat kajian and then showing that student budak vocational ni dia lagi nampak kepentingan apa yang dia belajar tu for the real world kan. What do you think that we can do more for, kalau if that is the case, takkan kita nak masukkan semua ke sekolah TVET kan? Kan maksudnya dia existing dekat sekolah harian kan tu. Apa yang kita boleh buat?
Apa yang kita boleh tambah?
Dekat sekolah harian tu have a skill based class. Maksudnya they can choose perhaps kalau dia minat dengan electronic kan. Ada kan satu kursus for electronics. Lepas tu these kids boleh boleh nampak lah banyak benda yang dia boleh dapat dekat sekolah selain daripada duduk dalam kelas belajar.
Do you think that actually we should enhance more like macam more towards like project based learning?
Boleh juga.
Problem based kan maksudnya.
Boleh. Project based, problem based dan sebagainya. Of course it's all pedagogy lah. Pedagogy daripada guru. Tapi sebagai seorang pendidik guru, I have seen the school setting di mana kelas yang hujung, ada kelas depan, ada kelas hujung.
Yes.
Kita still stream whether you like it or not. Kelas yang hujung ni cikgu nak masuk pun
cikgu drag,
tak termotivasi nak masuk.
Dreaded tu kan.
Jadi saya pernah observe anak murid saya, my student buat practical di salah sebuah sekolah di Selangor lah, kan. So first time saya pergi, nangis dia. Kata, madam saya tak nak fail. Dia kenapa pula saya dapat kelas hujung sekali, di mana kelas ni bila dia masuk je kelas, budak-budak semua keluar. Sebab kelas ni kedudukan kelas tu dekat bawah, sebelah pokok. Cikgu masuk je, budak-budak pergi bawah pokok.
Kenapa?
Memang macam tu.
Nakal dia.
Memang nakal. Budak nakal budak. Form 2.
Okay.
Form 2. Lepas tu dia kata dia mengajar pendidikan Islam. Lagilah.
Okay.
Betapa susahnya nak mengengagekan budak-budak ni kan.
Adik-adik jangan nakal adik-adik.
Kan. So dia nak menangis dah. Lepas tu saya cakap, okay, what can you do different? Dia kata, saya nak ajar bab ni susah madam. Saya nasihatkan dia, okay macam ni. You jangan fikir tentang silibus. You tak boleh habiskan silibusnya. Cakap whatever that you do. That is not your goal. Your goal is you keluar je daripada kelas tu, budak-budak tu dapat sesuatu. One thing. Okay? Tu dia pun, okay saya akan cuba madam. So dia pun, the next time saya datang observe, she was much better. Budak-budak semua stay. Saya datang observe tau. Budak-budak yang keluar pergi bawah pokok ni memang dia akan still pergi keluar bawah pokok walaupun ada tetamu kan. Jadi the next time budak-budak stay and the class was so much fun. Dia mengajar tentang kurban. Macam mana nak sembelih binatang. Okay. So apa yang dia buat, dia cuma memang fokus kepada rukun sembelih je. Walhal kelas tu 40 minit. Kan kalau kelas yang depan mungkin you boleh cover macam-macam lah, segala syarat-syarat tapi dia cuma fokus satu benda. And then dia buat like project based learning, suruh budak-budak melukis dan sebagainya. And then the kids were very very engaged. Walaupun kelas hujung.
Sebab dia very aktif kan, ada participant.
Tapi budak keluar pokok ada lagi.
Tak ada dah. Tak ada budak keluar, semua duduk dekat dalam tu. Tapi kelas tu bising lah. Tapi bising sebab macam apa song kau lukis lembu macam tu lah. Macam tu lah kan. Jadi lepas pada kelas tu, so saya tanya dia, so how do you find yourself now? Lepas tu dia kata, madam thank you so much, I feel so much better sebab saya tak ada terkongkong dengan silibus. Saya dia kata setiap kali dia masuk, dia akan cuba buat sesuatu yang baru dan dia akan ajar satu particular benda je. Dia kata that is much better dan budak-budak pun masih
so it's not so much about student juga, betul tak?
No,
it's actually because sometimes teachers pun terkongkong dengan syllabus.
Dia macam ni, orang kata think out of the box kan. The box is not there. Kita yang create the box. We create the box, we put ourselves in the box and we close the box. It's kita.
Kita.
The box is not there. It's not. Unless you put it there.
So it's all about the educators lah.
Yeah, somehow I always believe in that. For example, like I feel that macam instead of cikgu ni kita nak cover the syllabus, why not let the students uncover the syllabus?
Correct.
Kan?
Yeah.
Tapi I think that kind of even actually terbawa-bawa sampai lecturer pun macam tu kan. Kita memang the lecturer pun tak boleh. I mean
Kena cepat ni,
nak
kena
cepat ni.
habis.
I need to cover 14 weeks is not enough for me to cover everything.
Yeah.
Like
Kenapa? Okay, saya bukan lecturer, saya bukan cikgu, saya nak tahu kenapa.
tanya.
Kenapa?
Apa lecturer?
No, because I feel that sebenarnya kita dah terbiasa dengan this is how we were taught when we actually at as a student. And then kita kata, aku survive je, aku boleh je dapat good grade because of that.
Right.
Jadi kita rasa because of that, the way how we been taught like that, then we going to do the similar thing dengan our student. I don't know whether
Dr. Ros?
The culprit is one thing, satu je, exam. Itu je. Sebab you nak dapat A, you kena habiskanlah syllabus tu, kena baca.
Yep.
Just in case it comes out in the exam, just in case je. Kan guru kita, Prof Karim. Hai Prof Karim.
Hai bro.
nanti kena tag Prof Karim.
Prof Karim dulu ajar. Kita dulu ni belajar just in case. So kita punya syllabus, just in case you need to use differentiation. Apa ni,
DYDX kalau benda
DYDX.
tu.
I ajar you. Just in case one day you jalan-jalan tengah jalan, you kena pakai benda tu. Ajar. Tapi kita kena move from just in case to just in time and just enough and just for me. Itu sebab
Just in apa?
just in time,
In time,
just enough and just for me. Maksudnya sekarang ni dengan teknologi, apa information you nak at that particular time you boleh access. Contohnya. So the education landscape dah berubah sebenarnya. Cuma cara kita nak mengajar perlu juga berubah.
Betul.
Kan?
Yep.
You see the world changing, but we ourselves are not changing in education.
Right.
Yes.
Itu sebab orang industri marah kita. Kita pula marah orang industri kita. We are in an institution di mana kita nak produce thinkers, scholars, so we need to give as much information as possible. The thing is, we forget to teach the skills. Macam the thinking,
Tapi
decision
even
making.
actually to give as much information as possible tu pun not correct. Sepatutnya ilmu tu let them discover on their
Correct.
own kan. So I think that's one of the
Biar student tu curious lah.
biar student tu ada curiosity dan dia sendiri yang apa sebenarnya kemahiran yang saya rasa dia orang ada ialah how to learn.
Betul.
Betul tak?
Betul.
So once they have that skill, you give anything to them, they'll be able to discover.
Sebab tu problem based tu important. Sebab bila dia dapat problem, dia orang akan curious, macam mana nak settlekan benda ni. So dia orang akan sendiri cari solution lah.
Yes, correct.
Tak adalah kita, ni cara dia macam ni nak solve lah kan.
Betul macam contohnya student saya mengajar instructional technology. So one of the subjects is instructional designing learning experiences. So saya suruh diorang create an online course. Tengok orang ambil, tak ambil you punya course. So throughout the process, memang banyaklah yang diorang kira, Allah susahnya mana nak buat macam ni. Even defining learning outcomes. Kita sebagai academics, I am very surprised bila saya buat workshop dan sebagainya tentang learning design. Ramai yang tak boleh define learning outcome dengan tepat. You see. So even that basic skill pun kita tak ada. Sebab kita masuk kelas, kita ajar content, ajar. At the end of the day, kita assess, bagi exam, bagi quiz, and then of course there are some projects. Tapi project tu untuk apa? Nak develop apa-apa learning outcome yang kita nak. So my students bila diorang develop course ni, saya suruh diorang dapatkan student. So diorang kena cari student, kena ambil you punya online course and then bagi survey. So untuk membantu diorang, I would have a session dan saya akan panggil, contohnya diorang target budak form 2. Saya akan panggil sekumpulan budak form 2 datang ke UIA untuk ambil diorang punya online course dekat dalam computer lab. So diorang akan ambil ikut and diorang akan jawab feedback form, survey dan sebagainya. And then budak form tu akan bagi tahu dekat student saya apa yang dia suka, apa yang dia tak suka dan sebagainya. Ada satu group ni, dia orang kiranya macam buat kerja sambil lewa. Budak form 2 tu bagi tahu dia, you know I am coming today, you should have completed this module. This module is not complete. Mana soalan dia? Lepas tu yang ini, you are supposed to be teaching English, kenapa you punya grammar salah? Budak form 2 tu bagi, because I told the kids please be blunt, honest with this kakak and abang, sebab diorang nak jadi cikgu. So what type of teacher you nak ajar you? So they were very polite lah in telling kan. So I suruh diorang bagi grade. Diorang bagi grade budak-budak ni, ada yang dapat C+, ada yang dapat B+ on the course yang diorang buat kan. So I give them that full exposure. Daripada scratch, you nak fikir you nak ajar apa, you nak define your learning outcome, sampai you buat activity dan sebagainya, sampai budak ambil and diorang bagi feedback. So how does it feel? You know, to go through the whole process. Jadi diorang banyak lah dapat, and Alhamdulillah lepas grad, diorang ni dapat kerja jadi instructional designer. Yang tak nak jadi cikgu tu, diorang kerja dengan companies like Open Learning lah, and then there are a lot of learning design punya companies kan, because of that experience. So kita nak apa? Do we want them to know the theory of instructional design? Ada banyak model, ada dekat 50 model instructional design. Tak guna. Saya cuma ajar 2-3 je. Kemudian yang ini you guna betul-betul. So the rest of the other models they can discover on their own.
Yalah, betul.
Dia boleh cari sendiri later lah. Macam tu. Budak master pun saya buat macam tu. Master student, I engage a real author of a children's book. You kerja dengan dia, macam mana you nak jadikan dia punya buku ni e-book, with all the interactive elements dan sebagainya. Diorang memang kelas tu diorang cakap yang itu yang paling susah sekali, sebab dealing with the author yang cerewet. So I told the author, which is my friend, you be
cerewet
as cerewet as
possible.
as though you are paying them thousands of ringgit to develop your book.
Tapi in real life memang customer
memang macam tu. Jadi upon completing the course, and then after that diorang ni semua cikgu kan, kata that experience helped me a lot lah in developing my own materials, my own, dia orang ada website sendiri untuk nak mengajar dan sebagainya. So that's the outcome yang kita nak lah. We might not get 100% of the students to do that, tapi yang yang melekat dekat dia orang. But to get like 5-6 orang pun dah okay lah.
Betul. Yang dapat make that change, that dapat make that.
Correct.
Selalu Prof Karim. Prof Karim.
2 kali ni. Lepas ni Prof Karim.
Batuk dia tu. Tak, macam dia kata start with the ripple effect kan. Maksudnya you want to create that ripple. So you need to have like 5 to 6 people. And lepas tu dia dapat kembangkan ilmu dia kepada orang lain dekat sekolah dia dan sebagainya kan. I think those are the things that we wish that we could have lah. At the same time, I think among the lecturers, I agree with you lah. I do agree with you. Lecturers bila buat learning outcome ni, dia buka buku teks je. Learning outcome dia ni, asalkan cover topik ni, letak satu learning outcome. Nak cover topik ni, jadi satu learning outcome.
Yeah.
Still happening, right?
Still happening. Yes.
Happening. So that's I think quite sad lah. Somehow kita punya again, tapi I agree with you juga. Dia kata because of the exam tu is the culprit kan.
Yeah, the exam.
Because the students assess with the way how they learn. Actually that's and that's why I kata with the COVID coming in, somehow I feel blessed sebenarnya.
Yeah, betul.
Kenapa?
COVID datang, I gelak je.
Gelak.
Orang kelam kabut semua kan.
Itulah, I cuti kan. They call me, kata, doktor boleh tak tolong ni semua. Cakap, itulah, dulu tak nak dengar.
Mula sombong je. Sebab dia dulu bila kita ada format final exam yang close tu, so memang the way how kita ajar tu ialah kita push content kat student kita supaya student kita boleh menghafal untuk jawab exam tu. Tapi sekarang ni exam kena ubah format. You cannot give closed book exam. You have to give some kind of more open-ended supaya student nak meniru pun tak pandai-pandai nak meniru kan.
Betul.
So jadi dia push the creativity of the lecturers ni to the limit lah sebenarnya. Memang dia kena keluar daripada
untuk create the question.
Untuk create the question. Kalau siapa yang tak biasa, memang dia akan mata kutu lah.
Betul. Even kalau dulu kita ada pen and paper punya exam pun, you have to be creative back then. Now lagi lah you kena gunakan your creativity sebab salah satu soalan yang saya harus dapat masa buat training waktu MCO ni, online learning assessment, how do we assess dan sebagainya. And I cakap you have to be creative with your questions lah. Janganlah bagi soalan yang dia orang senang nak boleh dapat, dia orang di plagiarism and all that. Well, if you ask them to sort of reflect on a certain content knowledge, and then write their experiences, reflect upon this theory, contohnya. What have you, gained, for example, from this theory as it relates to maybe your recycling habits, for example, in SDG kan. So, budak tu nak copy macam mana?
Tak boleh jumpa lah kan.
Tak boleh nak jumpa
based
kan.
on dia punya personal experience.
Correct.
Kan?
And even in my instructional design class pun dulu, saya bagi final exam question. Okay, please elaborate what you did in phase 4 of ADDI model, which is implementation. What were your experiences when the students were taking your course and giving you feedback on the course? What did you do afterwards?
Okay.
Did you
So maksudnya dia relate balik dengan experience yang masa dalam kelas tu.
dia nak tidur macam mana?
Dia nak
Baik
kawan.
sebab
Memang tak
group
boleh
lain
tidur
lain
dah.
dia punya
betul.
experience kan. Jadi my rubrics also have to be a bit creative lah. I don't assess on the content so much, but rather on the reflections. What is the learning?
Selalu tapi
that they got.
ada argument juga, dia kata social science tak apalah, memang open ended macam tu. Dia kata engineering nak buat macam mana? Engineering ni calculation, dia kata.
No, I was an engineering student. Okay.
Cuma tak jadi engineering lecturer je kan.
Tak ada je. Tak
Tapi I agree. I'm very much agree. Sebab sebenarnya even actually I keep emphasizing as an engineer, there's always room for dia bukan you dapat jawapan tu itulah jawapannya. Somehow dia ada approximation, dia ada some kind of estimation that you have to include, and it depends on how you state your assumption, your basis of calculation, all those kind of things. So and each and everyone have a different way of doing and tackle how the ni kan. So that's why saya punya EA pun suddenly keluar soalan test pasal werewolf.
Oh wow. Okay.
But then the student need to relate with the context kan.
Of course.
Masa final standard examination, essential oil.
Yes. Chemical compounds.
And then nak buat proses material and energy balance somehow. Dia I think the students will remember lah kot dia punya background experience kan.
Lepas tu nanti dia orang jadi your customer lah.
Product placement. Okay. So speaking of which, Dr. Rose, you mentioned just now you are currently on leave.
Yeah.
And you were diagnosed with apa?
Okay. I was diagnosed with angiosarcoma cancer.
Okay.
Angiosarcoma.
Right.
It is a cancer of the blood vessel.
I read it's a bit a rare type of cancer, is it?
Yeah, it's a bit rare because tak ramai orang dapat. Yang tak berapa rare tu, yang common, I hate to use the word common cancer because cancer is so common nowadays kan. Yang lagi satu type tu carcinoma.
Carcinoma.
Yang ni sarcoma. It's got to do with the soft tissues like the blood vessels. So for me, it was angiosarcoma of the breast. Jadi it's different from the carcinoma punya breast cancer. This type angiosarcoma ni bila dia berlaku dekat kita, dia boleh berlaku di mana-mana, and the most common is on the scalp. In elderly men. Orang yang tua, orang lelaki yang dah tua. Kemudian angiosarcoma of the breast is the rarest. So daripada sarcoma, angiosarcoma, the breast is about 4% occurrence
in the world.
In the world macam tu lah. Jadi tak banyak. So when I first got to know was because I had a lump. Then pergi check, and then they referred me to a breast surgeon. Lepas tu buat biopsi, buat mammogram, MRI. Yang kata benign, tak nampak apa. Tapi because the breast surgeon is my sister-in-law, my husband's sister lah. And then she said, no, whatever it is, I'm taking it out. Because she's one of the best breast surgeons lah in Hospital Selayang. So dia kata apa pun kena bawa keluar because it's alarming lah. It grows. Mula dia kecil, lepas tu dia membesar. And it was quite big. So bila dah buat surgery, mastectomy, mula surgery lumpectomy je, buang the lump saja. So they did test and then it was benign. Tak ada apa. Dia orang kata it's hemangioma, which is irregular blood vessel. Lepas tu like a couple of months after that, dia macam tumbuh balik seperti tak buang. Jadi pergi
Tempat
lagi
yang
sekali
sama.
tempat yang sama. Another round of all those scans and stuff. And then my sister-in-law kata, no, this is funny. So I think we'll do mastectomy. Okay, tak apa. Then bila buat mastectomy, boleh buat reconstruction. So reconstruction usually plastic surgeon yang akan buat. So I transferred to HKL from Selayang. And then buat mastectomy. Lepas tu they did all the tissue punya test and all that, confirm cancer lah.
Lepas tu daripada discovery of the lump tu sampai confirm cancer tu, how long does it take?
About a year. About 1 year.
Maksudnya
Because
dah discover
buang
in
2018 towards
the end.
middle end, macam tu bulan
Baru kata
9,
confirm
bulan
it is
10
a
macam tu.
cancer.
Lepas tu 2019 in June saya buat surgery mastectomy tu 2 Ramadan. Satu Ramadan masuk hospital. So the next day surgery. So memang jenuh nak ganti puasa. So buat surgery, lepas tu ialah lepas raya dapat confirmation lah cancer. And then buat radiotherapy because they say angiosarcoma is not sensitive to chemo. Jadi diorang buat radiotherapy just to clear the tumor bed because according to the surgeon, diorang kata should be clear already. You punya tumor dah tak ada. Jadi buat radiotherapy. Masa tu habis bulan 9 early September. And then 2 weeks later saya pergi lagi 10 km. Standard Chartered Marathon. Waktu tu my husband
ni
buat
ikut siapa ni?
husband ikut my husband. Dia lari full marathon. Saya buat 10 km. Lepas pada tu bulan 10 my husband pergi Ironman, Langkawi. And then after that saya rasa macam ada lam belah kanan pula. Masa tu belah kiri. Ini macam sama je. Jadi pergi check
lagi.
Which was like dalam sebulan lebih, 2 bulan je gap dia kan.
Transferred.
So pergi check confirm.
Ada lagi lah dekat
Ada lagi dekat sebelah pula. Which is quite funny lah. Sebab kalau cancer yang carcinoma, kalau dia nak metastasize, it will metastasize to
tempat yang sama.
To your lungs, to your bone and all that. But this one it jumps. Jadi bila macam tu doktor pun takut it's a systemic punya ni lah infection lah ni kan. Sebab dia dalam blood vessel. Jadi okay, we will do mastectomy terus. Jadi in December I did another mastectomy, which is like dalam setahun tu berapa banyak surgery kan. Lepas pada tu dah habis mastectomy, I started chemo in March.
March this year.
March this year.
Masa PKP ni lah
start
kan.
PKP saya start chemo. Jadi saya boleh keluar rumah masa PKP. Kan? Keluar rumah pergi hospital, jalan kosong. Memang best lah. Tu hospital pun tak ada orang. So habis chemo bulan I just completed in end of July.
Doktor, doktor punya time diagnose tu kan, doktor punya badan macam mana? Still macam you mention before, you pergi lari lah apalah. Dia tak effect ke macam lemau lah apalah?
Tak ada. Actually that's the thing. That's why it's a silent killer kan. So you tak rasa, you tak adalah rasa tak sihat. Cuma the lump is just bothering me because dia kadang-kadang dia berdenyut. Macam tu lah dia berdenyut. Macam dia bengkak lah macam tu. Jadi it was bothering me lah. That's why I went and checked.
So when you first got the ni, what's your feeling? I mean like I wanted to know.
Okay, masa mula-mula doktor bagi tahu tu kan, okay apa ni, I want to let you know that you have cancer. Semua kan. My husband was with me. And then kita pun okay dengar, and then dia ceritalah all this treatment and what should we do next, blah 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 blah. And she said, okay, I'll let you digest and then we will get back to you on the follow up punya treatment because of its rareness.
The rarity of it kan.
Jadi dia orang pun kena meeting dan sebagainya untuk nak decide apa nak buat dengan saya ni. Lepas tu keluar je daripada bilik doktor tu, kita dua pun macam tergamam lah juga kan macam. And then the thing is my husband was very wonderful lah. Dia kata okay, that's alright, we'll fight this. Said, okay, no problem. So the same day my husband went and WhatsApped all of his doctor friends. Tanya apa this disease, what are the ni. So he did his research immediately.
Okay.
And all that. So kita pun I pun balik Google and see apa benda semua. And I found my one of our close friends who did PhD juga dekat Virginia Tech pun the wife ada a rare type of cancer and then she said, why don't you join the Cancer Survivors Malaysia punya group. So kita join. And then through Facebook search I found the angiosarcoma cancer group. Saya pun masuk join group tu. This is like all within 1 or 2 days.
Okay.
And ramai patients daripada US. So it's a US based punya group. Ramai from US and also from other parts of the world. Adalah daripada Italy lah, daripada Australia. And then saya join kat dalam tu. So I type in, tanya. So I read all of their punya sharing. And then ada yang seorang kata, oh, I 15 years NED, no evidence of disease. So 15 years she survived with it. And then ada juga yang tak survive and all that. But then most of the breast angiosarcoma semua survivors lah. Lama lah, yang 5 tahun, yang 3 tahun.
Maksudnya dia benda tu, dia 5 tahun tu maksudnya daripada first removal sampai that
first
period.
diagnosis.
First diagnosis tu dia dah tak ada recurrence balik
correct,
lah.
So jumpa that support group, I felt so empowered tau. Macam this is manageable. Macam bila doktor bagi tahu kita, doktor punya muka pun kita macam ya Allah.
I think is it because
harapan
of
aku ni.
Is it because of the doctor tak pernah jumpa case?
Ya, the doktor tak pernah jumpa.
Mungkin sebab Malaysia punya case pun tak banyak kot
tak banyak. And the best thing was through that Facebook group, one Chinese lady messaged me on FB Messenger because I shared my experiences. Lepas tu dia kata, I pun breast angiosarcoma. Lepas tu dah 2 tahun and she's still going through treatment because dia metastasize ke dia punya liver lah, ovary and all that. So jadi dia kata, I'm so glad I found you. Lepas tu the next few days seorang lagi message. So I jumpa 3 other
geng
women.
lah.
Ada geng. Ada geng.
Malaysia ni juga.
So
kat Malaysia.
Filter lah kan doktor bila ada kawan kan.
Yes. And then bila kita tahu experience orang lain macam mana, then kita banyak belajar daripada diorang and we know what to do next and we know what to expect, what are the possibilities and all that. Jadi it makes us feel more comfortable and more ready to go to any treatment and all that. Sebab so ni kita dengar chemo tu macam teruknya lah, orang chemo jangan buat chemo dah dulu semua kan.
Doctor, how is it? Chemo tu apa
Chemo
rasa
is
painful?
I hate going for chemo. I have to be honest.
Sakit ke?
I just hate going. Dia tak sakit. Okay, chemo ni tak sakit sebab you just masukkan chemical in your body. But after that, like hari ni kata saya pergi chemo pukul 8 pagi, saya balik rumah dalam pukul 2 habis, pukul 2, 3. Either malam tu saya akan rasa ya Allah tak laratnya, tak boleh nak buat apa pun macam dia rasa letih, and then for a few days lah, dalam 4-5 hari you akan rasa macam tu. And you punya
which is the side effect of it.
Which is the side effect, and then sometimes it will destroy your taste buds. So bila you makan goreng pisang kan macam ya Allah,
rasa
kenapa
apa
goreng
ni?
pisang rasa macam ni, you rasa frustrated. So there are certain food that will make you,
tapi for certain days je ke ataupun
the taste buds dia mati and then it takes time to recover. So kadang-kadang tak sempat pun nak recover, dah kena lagi 1 dos kan. Macam tu lah.
Baru nak rasa kuih pisang goreng.
Itulah dia. Jadi adalah air kelapa sedap. Waktu tu lah air kelapa. The nurse was like so delicious waktu waktu chemo tu lah.
Maksudnya ada certain food yang you still can
Yeah.
sikit lah.
Yes, correct. I think also because of the age factor, so the the chemo side effects were not as bad as macam ada orang lain tu yang macam muntah-muntah. For me, I had diarrhea. I had diarrhea instead of muntah-muntah, which is I am so blessed, rasa bersyukur sangat. Tak muntah sebab muntah ni lagi teruk kan. I had diarrhea, lepas tu of course all my hair gone, rambut gugur. Ada orang yang tak gugur pun rambut, ada. So depends on your body lah. Ada yang tak tahan. Memang chemo ni kalau you dah berumur, you tak berapa tahan sangat lah.
Okay, kita sambung sekejap lagi.
Kita simpan dulu yang tu.